Welcome to another episode of Menopause Matters, where we come together with experts around the world to give you the support during this difficult stage of menopause. Not too many people have talked about this sensitive topic. We often feel embarrassed or shy to ask about what it is. Why are we feeling certain way? So we have dedicated ourselves into doing this episode to help you to understand the madness and the magic of perimenopause and menopause. Today, I have a special guest, Kirstin. Kirstin, thank you for joining us at the studio today.
Oh gosh, thank you for having me. I get to talk about my favorite topic.
Amazing. Please tell people who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Kirstin Bouse. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist, but the forensic is for another conversation maybe. And I am heading towards, I think, 27 years as a psychologist.
Mm.
I own a group practice in Perth, but I've also recently launched a new business called the All About Her Centre for Menopause. And for me, I created it because I got really, really frustrated when I heard clients, colleagues, friends, family members, and myself when we realized how hard it was to find health practitioners who specialized in this particular area. And I thought, I really have to do something about that. And so All About Her is really quite new. We're starting to grow our health professional community, which is truly exciting. And you can find us on, social media and the internet and all the rest. And it's a means of women being able to kind of go to one platform and start to find a health practitioner of a range of different kind of disciplines to support them with whatever their perimenopausal challenges are, because they can be wide and varied and they can change over the years. So that's, I guess, my story. And I've also, smack bang in the middle of perimenopause. Well, actually, I think I'm close to the end. I'm pretty excited that I might be hitting that day of menopause soon. And it hasn't been an easy ride for me. And that's only just provided more fuel for my fire to try and make a difference as big as I can. I can't do it on my own, with my team of health practitioners, and really make a difference in this particular space. Have us talking about the very things that you mentioned before that we don't like to talk about. Take the shame out of it, take the stigma out of it, make it a really part of normal conversation so that we can get the support that we need. That's what's
That
important.
sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the madness that we experience during perimenopause?
Yeah, well, I guess what I might start this conversation by kind of saying that we know a heck of a lot of the symptoms. Like, I think we've done a good job maybe over the last year, maybe a little less, of educating the community and women around what the symptoms are. And but what I want to do is I want to put them aside, because as much as those symptoms and the typical ones like hot flushes, shitty sleep, dry vaginas, itchy skin, all those kinds of things are really, really important. And often they're so challenging that they're the things we actually have to concentrate on first. Loss of libido, weight gain. I know it all. I live it all. I hear it all as well. They are super important. But what I want to talk about is what happens for us internally. And for some women, and some women might not know this, that those symptoms I just mentioned actually tend to arise later, more towards your last few years of perimenopause. What happens earlier is that we actually start questioning who we are. We start perhaps not coping the way we used to. We start getting a bit narky and snappy and irritable with people, and really just like not feeling like ourselves. And if there's one phrase that I hear the most in my room and in my work is, I just don't feel like myself anymore, or I don't look like myself. And when they say look, they mean physically as well as kind of feel. Who on earth am I? I used to be X, now I'm not. Like, there's a lot of these internal shifts, and they are maddening because they're confusing. It's confusing because we have this idea of who we are, and we've lived that way for a heck of a long time. We've usually built a life that we actually have loved. I mean, no life is perfect. There's always hiccups and challenges. But as we move into perimenopause, we actually start feeling like, this isn't who I want to be. I feel different, but I'm not quite sure who I am now. And this life that I've built, often with great care and thought, this isn't actually fitting me anymore. I want to live differently. My priorities are changing. And that is really, really often very confusing. I've never used the word discombobulating as much as I have since kind of entering this phase myself and also talking with women in this stage. It's just really kind of, overwhelming, confusing, and quite distressing because we lose the anchor of who we know ourselves to be, hence the maddening.
I
Yeah.
hear you. I hear you. So now that listening to it, I'm completely okay that to develop this like no BS strategy and no tolerance towards any
Yeah.
kind of like BS. So that's
Yeah.
good. That's like, I'm finding myself in,
Yeah.
in the process as well. So
Yeah.
like we talk about all the symptoms, all the craziness. So what
Mm.
are the magics, or are there any magic in the menopause stage?
There's definitely magic in the menopause stage. And you've mentioned some of them in terms of speaking up for ourselves, being less tolerant of things that we should probably have never been tolerant for in the first place, having better boundaries, focusing more on ourselves. So that's kind of ideally where we move towards. But this middle period of time, as I said, there's this maddening period where we're completely lost. And then we start to slowly work towards the gifts and the magic. And the magic is something, it can take a long time. I mean, this is one of the challenging things with this stage. It can be 5 to 15 years that we are in perimenopause. And we don't know whether we're someone who's going to get the 5 or whether we're going to get the 15. We don't know. And so it's a really long period of time, which is, I think, one of the other challenges. Because if I knew, for example, that, okay, this is a really difficult time, but in 3 years' time, I'm going to have the magic that I've heard about, you can kind of grit your teeth and bear it. And you can also put a lot more energy, if it's a short period of time, into getting to the gifts. But because it's in this unknown period of time, it is harder. And I know it's really cliche to kind of talk about the caterpillar in the cocoon that turns into the butterfly, and it's got to struggle in order to kind of flourish and break out and grow its wings and fly. It's very cliched, but that is actually what happens. We grow most when we are facing challenges, as long as we're supported while we face and navigate those challenges. If we're left, if we don't have the right support, and we aren't able, I guess, to have the space and time to do what needs to be done, then sometimes it's hard to find the gifts. But generally, people are very, very resilient. Women in particular are very resilient. We've usually done this transformative thing before because it happens when we get our period. For those of us who've had pregnancies and things, it happens when we're pregnant, become mums, and it happens again at perimenopause. So we're actually very familiar with this kind of big renovation project. We've done it, we've renovated before. This one just had a whole heck of added demands, and it's often more powerful. It sets us up for the second half of our life. And so the gifts are, I know myself more. I know I have consciously grown into the woman I want to be during my midlife and my later years. I curate my time and my friendships and my interests. So the friends in my life, the people in my life, the way I spend my time is far more likely to be aligned with who we are and less about obligation for the sake of obligation. Doesn't mean that we just, stop looking after our kids or our parents, who are elderly. It doesn't mean we abandon all our responsibilities, but we're far more focused on supporting and nourishing parts of ourselves that we want to nourish. And there's actually a hormonal reason for that, and there's a neurological reason for that. So one thing we know is that when this is a neuroendocrine event, and we know that the brain actually goes through a significant rewiring process. And they kind of talk about that the circuits we don't use die, and we can also really escalate growth because we've got a greater ability to build new circuits than ever before, or during these hormonal signposts in our life. And so what I liken it to is, if you think of a road that's a really crappy road, we can choose very quickly to close that road off, much quicker than at other times in our life. But if we also want to build this beautiful kind of road system, we're more capable of building that far more quickly and more consciously than ever before as well. So that's the kind of wiring neurological explanation. In addition to that, estrogen, which is known as the hormone of servitude and accommodation, when that declines, we are less inclined to serve and accommodate others. And that's why that attention starts being, we start directing it towards ourselves. And these things kind of walk alongside the perimenopause experience, alongside the dry vaginas and the hot flashes and crappy sleep and sore joints, all of those things. But it lands us in a place where we are far more conscious of who we are, who we want to be, how we want to live our lives, how we spend our time. We find new purposes often, and that's where we get the most vitality and joy from. And again, using the word joy, it's one of the things I hear most often from women who are at that stage of having reached the gifts, that joy is a bigger feature in their lives as well. So these are the gifts, but they don't come without struggle.
It's okay. I think that the way that you put it, there is the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're right. As a woman, we do renovate ourselves quite a bit, and I think this is one of the biggest transition that we can make, and it is based on our mindset. How do we see this situation? And I do believe that our mindset does play a very, very big part of it. So, in your opinion, how can we embrace both of the madness and the magic, and to make this period a lot more enjoyable?
It's a really good question. And I think one of the first things, and I really want to try and change this at a big level, like I want the individual woman to know, but I want it to be common knowledge that this is a tricky time, and that we need time to actually shed the layers and look deeply and try out different things that might, to see if they work for us, to see if we enjoy them. Unfortunately, the systemic stuff, the patriarchal system, kind of still, I guess, expects us to play a significant caring role in particular. So we have all these demands on our time and attention, and it can be really difficult. But I think the key thing is to be thinking about, well, what are the parts of myself that exist now that I really like? How can I leverage off those? I think it's important to remember how resilient we are, because we've renovated many, many times. We've got through, if you're midlife, you've certainly had some hard times. You just can't get to midlife without having had some hardships and kind of overcome them and work through them. I think we also get to think about, or what's important and helpful to get to the magic is, what do I want to actually, I guess, build in myself? Or what do I want to grow bigger? What are the qualities? What are the interests? What's the learning? What's the knowledge that I want to add to myself and add to my life? And carve out time for ourselves. And while I know we can often, as women, still feel guilty when we're not doing everything for everyone, because it's kind of how we're socialized. And as I said, estrogen plays a big role in the drive to do that. I do want women to know that when they start when they start thinking about, oh, I really wish I could do X, Y, and Z, and oh, I wish the kids would look after themselves for a bit, or I wish I didn't always have to be the one that does that in the home, that those thoughts, there's that biological reason that they're starting to push up against those kinds of expectations on them. And I want them to know that, so that it lessens the guilt, and it actually increases the permission for them to start really allowing themselves to connect to the things that bring them joy. And that, I think, is the other final, well, not the final, one of the really key pieces is joy. Think about what used to bring you joy, which you might still be able to do as an adult. I spoke at an event last week and I talked about how I used to roller skate as a kid down this hill in my childhood suburb. I don't know whether that's the wisest thing for me to do now. I think I'd break a leg or something, but there's finding a version of it. Maybe I can go roller skating at a roller skating kind of place, and that's a little bit safer than this crazy hill. So either replicate the things that brought you joy that were just totally unrelated to the roles that we play for other people, because often women's identity until this stage is determined by the relationship that we have with other people. Who are you? I'm a mum. Okay, straight away, I'm saying part of me relates to having children. I'm a wife or a partner. Again, my identity is actually being defined by my relationship to somebody else. But who's just Kirstin? Like, you know, regardless of who's in my life, Kirstin is the person that roller skates down the hill. How can I nourish her? So whether it's music, whether it's sport, whether it's other forms of creativity, whatever brought you joy, find ways to bring that into your life now, and find women to share that with, because we need each other, particularly at this time. They're often calling perimenopause reverse puberty from a hormonal perspective. But knowing what I know about psychological theory and stages of psychological development, the things that we focus on as adolescents are the same things we focus on when we're going through this particular stage of life. So adolescents focus on, who am I? What do I believe? What's important to me? My peers are important to me. Give me freedom and autonomy. Take these rules off me, you know, and also their body, their relationship with their body. They're the things that are considered characteristic of the psychological development of adolescence. And they are the things that research tells us, shows us time and again, that midlife and perimenopausal women are also thinking about and reevaluating and making shifts in. And so that's why I'm like, connect to that part of yourself, but do the adult version of it, whatever that might look like. And part of that is making sure we've got peers to actually share these kind of experiences with, the good stuff and the not good stuff. So I don't necessarily think I'm offering anything groundbreaking in terms of the how-to. What I do hope is that the reason why this happens, that might be new for people. And I hope that the reason actually gives women more permission to really grab the reins of this stage and really make the most of it. And I also hope it reduces the guilt, because I definitely know that's something we women are really good at, is feeling guilty. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a very, very beautiful share that we just listened to. So definitely tagging everyone onto our recording today. I think that a lot of us can actually benefit. So please tell people a little bit more about how do they reach you and about your program.
Sure. So you can find me and my colleagues at the allabouthercentre.com.au. And we're still building our health practitioner membership, so the health practitioners that provide services. So for any of you who are, you know, health practitioners who might be interested in joining, then certainly you can find more out about it via our website. But it's also a website where if you wanted to be accessing a health service, naturopathy, nutrition, psychology, therapy. In time, we want pelvic floor physios, we want, or osteopaths, a whole bunch of additional kind of health service providers. Then you can actually go to the website and you can find someone who has expertise in their discipline with the added expertise of their discipline and women going through the menopausal years, which is something we're all very, very invested in this stage of life. They're really great women. So that's one really, I guess, service that we provide. We're certainly building out our resources. We'll be offering more webinars. My role in All About Her is actually to provide a lot of education and training to the health practitioners in this area, because the more informed we are, the better service that we can provide. And I feel really strongly that I have a role to play. Like, I need to step up and do that, particularly in my own profession. But the other thing that I do have on offer is my coaching program, which is all about embracing the madness and the magic. It starts in a couple of weeks' time, and your beautiful members, which is like mind-blowing what you've created here. You'll be passing on a discount code and things, and it's kind of run over 12 weeks. There's a couple of weeks where we won't meet, and that's because I know life steps in and it just gives people a bit of a chance to catch up with watching any of the recordings that they may not have been able to attend live, do some of the homework. And it's really taking us through a process. There's 4 stages to the program. And it's the reckoning, which is where we're kind of brought to our knees, the reclamation. And then we also, I guess, get through to a point where ultimately we're seeking liberation, and we find that place that we can that we can get to as well. I missed a step there. There was the resurrection. So reckoning, resurrection, reclamation, and liberation. And I think I just want to speak a little bit about reclamation, because that's a really important stage where we actually appreciate, value, and retain the qualities and the parts of ourselves and our lives that are really useful for us. We don't have to get rid of everything of who we are or what we've gone through. There's a lot of wisdom that we carry, and that particular module is really about tapping into that particular wisdom. But then it's also about adding to that, okay, what else do I want that I need to grow and develop? And what might stand in my way? Because, I mean, as a psych, that's generally where I spend a lot of time is, okay, you might want to change. And I can throw a whole bunch of strategies at any client, whole bunch of them. But us humans aren't always good at implementing those strategies. And so a lot of focus tends to be on, okay, what is keeping you stuck? You know what to do, but what is stopping you from doing it? And often there's a little bit of history, our own history in there. Sometimes it's because we try new things on for size and the people in our lives push back. Sometimes people don't like it when we become a bit more boundaried or a bit more, no, you can do that, or I'm going out now and I'm pursuing this. So there's a lot of support. Of course, bringing women together in a program like that, women together are amazing. Like, seriously, you know this, it's why you've created what you've created. And for me, that's really the beauty of it as well, is that we're all working on this stuff together and growing together. And so, yeah, that's the program that, people can participate if they want to, which I'd love to see some people from your community a part of it.
Definitely, definitely. I think that will be very helpful for people to know that there is help out there. A lot of women like us that like to choose to think that there's no option and there's no way. And it is one of the reasons why I started doing all of this recording and interviewing different experts, is for them to get the information they need to actually get the support they need. Because we can suffer in silence, or we can just reach out for help and be guided by the people who can help you and have the expertise to help you. That's the difference, the expertise. Thank you, Kirstin, once again for giving me your amazing content, beautiful value, amazing knowledge. It has been such a joy listening to you today. Thank you for giving us your valuable time. And thank you again for all the listeners and our audience for joining us again on Menopause Matters. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. See you soon.